I'm over at Amazon. Currently, we are hiring at our facility centers, and our starting pay is at $19 an hour. You can also take advantage now of getting your tuition paid for. We're also really interested in all disabilities applying at Amazon as well as veterans. By the year of 2024, we have a goal to hire 100,000.
Have you seen all the help wanted signs out recently? I see it every day. Throughout San Bernardino County, businesses are looking to hire great people. Here at Workforce Development in San Bernardino County, we operate 3 career centers in Rancho Cucamonga, San Bernardino, and Victorville. We'd like to invite you to come out and meet our team of career coaches. They're there to help you prepare for your next job interview.
At the end, almost, if you want the whole video, I would have to send it to you. Like, I would have to download it off of here and then send it to you. I don't know if you'll be able to download it off of YouTube. But definitely, if you want a video, I'll give you my business card in a second.
Our faith-based talent. The church is like,
Black back over here, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to figure out a clever way to say that, but we love the church. My good friend, my Reverend George Lamb. We're on several county and community boards together and committees and things like that, but he's doing a great job up and down the hill, business-wise. One of my mentors, my big brother, so he's going to come and he's going to help facilitate this pastors of this faith panel. Can we welcome Mr. George Lamb?
So I guess I have to put my preacher voice on. I don't necessarily really have one, but good morning, good morning. Good morning. We get a little bit of enthusiasm. I want y'all to make me feel welcome this morning. Amen. We are privileged today to support this Black Business Summit. Our new president of Black Chamber, Mr. Terrence Stone, was so gracious to extend an invitation to me. And I'm honored this morning because what the church is responsible to do as the responder in a time of need hasn't changed for centuries, right? Always in first, always out last, right? And as a community of people who are responsible to support the business workforce development and growth in the high desert in particular, and in this city, pastors have come together to put forward different types of leadership. And so when you talk about equity, when you talk about workforce, when you talk about the impacts of COVID, when you talk about whatever it is that is affecting the quality of life that we have, pastors are kind of always in the center somewhere. So let's give it up for the pastors. We want to honor the work that they're doing. And so in our discussion today, we're going to take an approach that might be a little bit different. But as I was driving up the hill in the rain and dodging tractor trailers that didn't know exactly what they wanted to do, I had a few things that pop up in my head, right? And so we're going to listen to this discussion, and we want to talk about the private face of doing business in the church. Many of us are recipients of what the church has done and continues to provide in its leadership to those of us who run businesses, to those of us who are aspiring to impact the quality of life here in Idaho. There's a private face there. We don't always understand what the struggles are in meeting the needs of people, right? Hey, this is Terrence Stone, man. We just flow. We adapt to changing conditions. Amen. How we doing? We good? So
I
y'all,
mean, not changing conditions. We not quite good yet.
Go behind the table.
We gonna get there.
Get behind the speaker.
Now.
Get behind the speaker. Preacher. All right now.
We behind the table, that makes a difference. So I don't mind being a transition person. So. And then we want to also talk about what it's like to be a pastor in a public space, right? Where your businesses that you lead are not necessarily what the church knows about you or how it is that it sees you do the work that you're doing to impact the community. And then we're going to talk a bit about what it's like to be a pastor and work with government, right? So we have today with us Pastor Paul Earl. Pastor Paul, if you will come. Also in my parents will be Bishop David Benson, Burning Bush Church. Also in the house this morning is Pastor Paul Hines. Harold Hines. Harold Hines. And finally, we have Pastor Mark Graham, who you saw featured in the video. Pastor Mark Graham If any one of you have already been mic'd, why don't you take just a moment and tell our audience a little bit about who you are, about what you're doing, and who you represent, church.
Good morning. I'm Pastor Harold Hines. I'm pleased to be here with all these distinguished leaders. And what I'd like to just share a little bit about myself. I've been in ministry over 25 years. And about 5 years ago, we started a church right here in Atlanta called Kingdom Life Christian Center. And started out just not affiliated with no particular denomination, which was tough in itself. But the Lord blessed our ministry. We began very slowly just introducing ourselves to this community and what has been said in the previous panel, just listening to what the needs of the people are. And out of that grew an outstanding ministry, servicing people, providing, first of all, for their spiritual needs, but also serving here at Atlanta presented a lot of challenges. And that was simply about just taking care of their spiritual needs, but also feeding, housing, listening to a bunch of issues that they were presenting. But God has blessed our ministry, and I'll say a lot more about that. But I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Pastor Paul Earl from the Life Church. Good to see you with some friends of mine. I haven't seen each other for a half a minute. COVID kind of like holds some of us apart. It's good to be here and to see many of you. I moved up here to the high desert in 2003. We lived in Cerritos, and for those of you who don't know, my accent is from Jamaica. I'm an island guy. No, you can't tell. But in 2003, the Lord promised us and said, there's a harvest coming to the desert. We'll raise up workers for the harvest. My wife and I drove around the high desert. We saw the tumbleweed. Those of you who know, there's a time when there was not much development. And on the corner of 395 and Palmdale Road, there was a Coffee Blue restaurant, a gas station, and a Burger King, and nothing else. And we stood on that corner and felt this conviction that there's a harvest coming here. And then at that moment, we made a commitment. We moved our family here, And we have lived to see the harvest coming to the desert with thousands of homes, businesses, developments, and we're just kind of happy to be a part of that and to share in the life of the community in different ways, both in church, in community projects, what we do in school, in the family practice clinic. And we're just glad to be here. This is our city, we love it. And people complain about the desert. Well, guess what? God has a purpose for us here. And so we're here to make a difference and for a community to be built that has a foundation in Christ. So we're excited to be part of that. So thank you very much for having me.
I'm Bishop Dennis Denson. The name has been changed today to Bishop David Denson. We've been here about 28 years, and we started our church. We came to the High Desert 28 years ago, pastored a small church across the track, first missionary. 3 years later, God chose to found the Burning Bush Church, and our purpose is Christ-centered, word-focused, and ministry-minded. Our mission is change people, change family, change community, and we change nations. We're just the church that loves life and God and everybody.
Hello, my name is Mark Graham, and I've been in ministry probably about 27 years, seems like a hundred. But I've been here in the High Desert for 12 years. So other than Harold, I'm the baby at the table.
So equity and inclusion, and equity and diversity, and equity in economic development, equity in workforce, equity, and equity coupled with leadership, right, causes a need for a different type of transition in the 2022 than we left 2021 in, right? How business gets done in 2022 is going to be very, very different than it's ever been done before. And the transitions that are occurring as we integrate technology, as we learn how to zoom ourselves away, as we get to a place where we're transitioning back into what sense of normalcy life might look like, there has to be a different strategy, there has to be a different approach, there has to be a different level of collaboration, and the church is oftentimes the place where a lot of those things get infused, and once they've been infused and developed and begin to manifest themselves, then they matriculate out into the community, right? Businesses that are housed in churches, business owners that are leaders within their respective congregations, business owners who have impacts and spheres of influence in their communities, right? Oftentimes lean on the backs of these men, right? To help them make those transitions. So what I want to do for us in this time that we have remaining is hear from them about what their visions are, right? What challenges they've been facing, what kinds of transitions they see themselves needing to make as faith leaders who are responsible for people, right? Who are coming out of all kinds of things that are just beginning to kind of manifest themselves in ways that we didn't even anticipate the impacts of COVID, right? When we talk about domestic violence, right? When we talk about alcoholism and drugs and these types of things, those things impact the quality of life, and they also influence how business gets done. Now hiring signs everywhere you go. And people who normally would be interested in the kind of wages that are being made available so that people can return to work are being very dismissive, right? Not interested in returning to the workforce. And even with that, still in a place where they are trying to figure out what life is going to look like and be for them as well. And whenever those people find themselves facing those challenges, it's these men that they will look to for leadership. So when we think about equity and the impacts of COVID, right? When we think about equity and the impacts of the workforce, when we think about equity in how business gets done, right? We want to ask these men to share with you. This Black History Month.
To see what kind of tribal rhythm you got with it. Amen. And so let me start with Bishop David Benson. Bishop Benson, if you will talk to us just a bit about your style of leadership and how that has impacted business, right, of the church, right? So there's a public-facing business face, and then there's a private. We want to talk about the private side. You could talk to that. Just
Well, equity is about trying to find how to be fair. And sometimes in the midst of it, man, we have religion that's not fair. It's not fair because the same competition that's in the workplace, the same competition in the church, it should not be. And the challenge is that we don't have enough fairness to man of great or small people working together to make a difference. So if we want to make a difference, we have to change the mindset of our people. Not only do we need to get you saved, but we need to get your voice. Because you can't shout your way to the grocery store. All right? And so what we have to do is find a way to make sure that our people are not only being inspired by what God has given, but also God has given you your own talents. So we have to turn around and nurture the talent in our people to let them know that if they get all God and get their business, their education, and own a house and not just rent an apartment, then the church can do what it needs to do equitable because it can keep up with the business. Most times we can't keep up with the business because you got the money, but we got the members. You only come to us when you're not members. And so we got to find a way to build us up internal and external to make business work.
Pastor Graham, take that same question and put government on it. Pastor Graham is a leader in a way that not many others have been for a little while, in that he's been very successful partnering with government here in San Bernardino County, law enforcement, and some other governmental agencies in particular. And I'm aware of that work, right? So I'd like you, Pastor Graham, if you would, talk about the challenges, right, of working with government, how to bring your pastor's perspective into those conversations, how to help potentially shape policies that are going to be to the benefit of the people that you serve, as you endeavor to continue to partner with government. Can you talk to that?
I think the biggest thing is understanding that we're all together. I think we talk a lot like things are separate, but government is the people. So government needs the people, people need the government. Those people come to our churches, right? So a lot of times there are artificial divisions that stop us from being successful. So for us, and I think for the church, the partnership between the church, the faith-based organizations, and the government is one we talk about, George talks about a lot, is capacity building. And there's two different expectations. So the hard part for the church is the government needs the influence of the church in the community, but it has a different standard, different accounting standard, different financial standards. And a lot of times the church is not taught how to navigate that way. So the partnership looks like government coming to the church, helping expand that capacity so that the church or the faith-based organizations can not only rely on tithes and offerings, which are up and down, especially times like this with inflation, but be privy to some of the money that the actual congregation is putting in anyway, so they're paying taxes. So the money should flow back to the church, back to the people, so the church can help the people. But it should be both at the same time. Government helping the church, and church actually helping the government. But the biggest gap is the capacity building and structure. And so I think the partnership has to be a little better with government teaching, this is what it looks like, this is how you account for it, because government accounting is very different than just nonprofit accounting.
So I think that's one of the biggest struggles we've had to overcome, learning the language, learning what they expect. Most churches are qualitative in nature, so quality, testimony, that's what we do. But you have to be quantitative in nature. So the church has to measure. In the Bible, they were counting. They said Peter preached, 5,000 people were added to the church. But sometimes the church doesn't count, and they're not able to tell their story. So I think us being able to tell our story in this collaboration with government will actually help the people that we actually serve and actually needed to be the best they can be.
I want to shift the question just a bit. Because Pastor Paul has a public-facing business. Matter of fact,
California, sir.
and so, you know, as a pastor, leading a congregation of people or a couple of congregations through his leadership, what is it like as a Black business owner, right? Particularly in the healthcare services industry? What is it like for you, and how do you see your vision for what your business needs to become in order to have an impact that's very different on the economy and in workforce development?
Big question. Just to give you some of the story. So we came to the ideas over that concept, that vision that God said there is a harvest coming. And you're particularly interested in that area, it wasn't developed at that time. And so we planted the first life church there. And then my wife, Charmaine, she's one of the leading family practitioners here in the city. And at that time, there was no primary care services on this side. And so for us, it was investing in this side of the New York City so we could offer services there. At the end of the day, and for all of us here, our heart and soul is to make a difference in people's lives. And if you are doing that, then there is a return in terms of revenue, your blessing, your fruitfulness, but also your impact. And so for us, if we go where the needs are, right, then you're going to see the growth and the development. I've mentioned and heard Pastor Mark speaking of his collaboration with the government. There were some great needs in the prison, and he stepped into that, partnered with the government to meet people leaving, and then flourished because there was a need. Over here, there was a high need for people to not only get spiritual revival, but also healthcare. So, you know, even though I had a practice on that side of the freeway, we opened one here as well. There was a need for greater services. I think if we're driven by the needs of our community, both in terms of church, in terms of business, then we get to see some difference being made. And so we expanded that, took on some more employees, grew to another practice, working on a third, and it's just been very good, you know. And it's like, the truth is, meeting the needs of people, and that's what helps us make a difference. And so my passion really drives us is people have needs, and the same way Christ met needs. If we step up there and just make a difference in people's lives, both individuals as well as communities, we'll see whatever we're engaged in prosper, flourish, and be completely well. Does that make sense? That's kind of what drives us. And I'll make a comment that may get me in trouble, but Jesus said, "The poor is always with you," right? And the gospel is preaching the poor. And if you join with Christ in taking care of the poor, in helping people, God will bless it and you'll flourish. In 2007, when not many practices were doing medical products, we said, you know what? People have a need. And the medical products in those days, Melina is here, God bless you, were not very profitable. But guess what? People had need. And when the economy crashed, and people who had regular insurance had to switch now to those guess what? We're already there helping people in that space. And as more people got to that space, we saw the benefits of being in there first. But the drive really was not looking for a profitable market. The drive that moved us in that first place was, hey, there are people being not served, and we'll take on the headache. We'll step into it. And that's when that drives you. Not only does God bless you, but the larger population, as it multiplies, will benefit you as well. And so that's kind of how we do it. Hope that answers your question.
Pastor Hines, I want you to take just a different perspective to the same question. But what I want to add as an element to your question is the messaging and the influencing of workforce development and people's readiness to return to the work environment. How are you charging your congregation? I've been to your church. I know what kind of community work you do, what kind of facing the needs of the community that you seek to meet, right? And so as you have congregants who want to return to the workforce and are facing challenges, like about business, how is it that you are incentivizing or motivating your people to integrate that into the workforce? And talk about what those challenges are.
So not only am I a pastor, but I'm also a small business owner myself for the last 26 years. So I do understand the thinking of small businesses, the needs of small businesses, marketing, bottom line profit, things of those nature. So I brought that perspective to ministry. But then the challenge was, as me as a pastor has spoken, how do we not only meet those needs by listening to people, but the tradition of the Black church has always been dual. Not only are we grounded in the gospel, but we've also had the real needs, housing, employment, people wanting to start businesses. So when we started in 2016, the first thing that we confronted was the idea of people coming and saying, I don't have a job, or, I can't take care of my family, those kinds of concerns. So we immediately began to meet with those individuals and talk about job readiness, job training. I'm on the board at Victor Valley College of Measure J. So we began to talk to the college about maybe partnerships with some of the things that the college is doing to work with individuals that may not have those skills, going back to get additional training. But all of us know in this environment here, you need new skills in this new environment to meet those needs. So we began to talk to the college about, well, we want to be sending people to you, and we're going to be sponsoring some of them that don't have the income, talk about Pell Grants, things of that nature. So workforce became connection with the college, connection with other agencies that were looking to hire people and train them, working with those individuals, and then keeping them accountable as well. Not just about what's going to be offered to you, what are you going to bring, what are you bringing to the table, and what kind of commitment are you willing to give to this if we connect you with the right person. So it was accountability. We're not going to just, we're not going to just offer you opportunity at the same time. Okay, are you showing up on time? Right? And are you doing the things that the job are required to do? Are you following up? Are you being there? Are you doing what's important? That's the different roles of the church, not the traditional role, because our foundation is the gospel. We're here to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, to see people's lives transformed. But again, we have to meet those needs. When people show up, they show up with counseling needs, job needs, and we've always had to juggle those interests. And I don't see that change. I see it more so even now than ever before.
Moving from workforce development as it's being understood. things that Pastor Graham mentioned that I think is a good place for us to center our next round of questions is in capacity. What does that mean? And how is that relative to what the church is doing? And then how does that transition and connect to business, right? If the Black Chamber here in the High Desert has a responsibility to help businesses grow, right? To vet potential new companies as they come into the community, to incubate small business, to minister to and support those entrepreneurs as they come out of what was a traditional work environment into something new. Not everybody that's not going back to work is not going back to work because they don't want to. They found out how to make money in this environment. They've been inspired by their passions, creativity, and innovation is a result of disruption. And so disruption says, you know what? I've always wanted to start my own business. And here's the time that I'm going to do it, right? And so as pastors leading communities of people who are not only not returning to the workforce because of what that challenge may present, but as a business owner, I'm impacted by their unwillingness to come back to work, right? For these increased wages, new levels of assurances, all kinds of other support. So how do we bring support to the Black business owners here in the High Desert, especially those in the faith community when they're dealing with those things? How, Pastor Mark, has your capacity needed to change as a result of what we are?
So I think, if there's a good thing, everything is not bad. And COVID, when you talk about it, it's like a bad thing. And it's a terrible thing. I think I buried 30 or 40 people. It's just too much, right? But at the same time, it's a disruptive innovation too. And it has caused us to rethink how we do church. And so I'm just going to be honest, and people might disagree with this, but that happens every Sunday. In the 80s, 90s, this whole thing came called mega church. And then pastors start shifting and said, let me be big, right? COVID is actually antithetical to that. And in the Bible, they were small groups. You knew people, they were in their house, right? So COVID, I think, has made the church really look at, are you trying to have a big church, or are you trying to have big people? And I think the shift now is making sure that people are resilient. So what we try to do during COVID and even now is we are about resiliency. Whether that resiliency is in your business, with your family, and resiliency is the capacity to recover quickly and keep moving in the face of adversity. So it's changed how we preach, it's changed how we talk. There was a big movement in the church about prosperity, but what do you do when you can't go anywhere? It's like owning a laundromat and you're restricted to wash your clothes. How do you keep the door open? And pastors had to begin to figure that out. And I think it made all of us in the faith-based community say, we better start putting into people how to be resilient, because the next COVID could be coming. And so we've got to start building up people. And if your church gets big because of that, great. But if your church doesn't get big because of that, but the people are big, you've done better and you've done what the Lord has done. Because last time I checked, he had 12, not 100. And he changed the world. So for us, it's been teaching resilience in people's personal life. So we opened up care groups. So now we have divorce care. Because guess what? Coming out of COVID, people realized they didn't like each other. Divorce care for kids. The biggest ministry we have right now is grief share. Why? Because people lost things. It's not about just losing people, losing jobs, losing connection. So we opened up a grief share. So we started a whole segment called Abundant Care that teaches people how to recover and how to keep going. But for us, it made us shift not into building a big church, but building bigger people.
When Bishop Denton responded to the call for a high level of administrative responsibility in the office of bishop, we had a conversation. And what I began to recognize was that his mindset had already elevated before the call actually came. And so his capacity to lead other churches and help other churches thrive, not just survive through COVID, but also thrive and growing and having different kinds of impacts on the areas and communities that they serve. Bishop Denson, I want you to talk just a little bit about how your individual capacity changed, but how you transition that into your leaders and the people that you have supported you.
Well, COVID did a couple of things. It knocked the wind out of all of us towards how we operated, what was going. I have to say all the time that many times that, as Pastor Margaret said, Jesus had 12, which was to remind one of them was a devil. And then we get home. My point is the fact that when you're doing great work, there's always going to be somebody against you. So don't be surprised when someone's inside your camp is the one that's actually going to act against you and trade you in. And what COVID did anything, he let you know, well, Judas is working. So if you didn't find out what the Judas were, then you really missed all the rest of the disciples. Because you got to have the able to handle the good, the bad, and the ugly in ministry. And so if you didn't turn around, and so when the call was on my life, the elevation of bishop, I had to quit thinking about my membership and started thinking about the body. Then I had to co-work with other pastors that were already doing it, fact, and Mark and others, and Paul and others that we collaborate with. You have to think a little bit different. Some of them seen each other in almost 2 years. But it didn't stop the ministry because ministry ought to be internal and not just external. But if you don't fix internal, your external will never come to pass. So you got to find some way to make sure that you're still connecting with other people and building larger capacity within yourself, and then removing yourself from that to let them grow. Because what COVID did, it made us stop. I love you, y'all, because folks stopped calling me. And I had a good reason not to come. Okay, you're try this way. Sometimes we as pastors try to be everything when we're only one thing, and that's just a person. And you can't be big when small got you. And so our mindset, amen, sometimes we're going to be so big and so grand, we have not done the little things. Like mercy, kindness, and love. So we had to go back and reteach our people, and when I went up, they had to go out. But I had to teach them how to go out, so that they can function without me. And what COVID did, let our pastors and let some of our members understand the fact that we're not some genie in a bottle. We're just people that preach the word of God, and we need God the same God you need. And in COVID, everybody had to call on their God, or their mask, or their segregation, or separation, I should say. So if we're going to do that, we have to turn around and build other people under us. So the fact that we as pastors are not being these icons. I mentored a lot of my ministry after Bishop Blake, because the ministry he built on Crenshaw Boulevard did not just stop at his building. It wanted his whole street. I focused not on my building, I focused on 7th Street. From the building I was that's tore down to where I am right now, because that's where the homeless at. I have to teach my people to think different, because they got a big, beautiful building, but don't mean that you got beautiful people. So don't have a beautiful building and then be afraid to deal with other people. Otherwise, you're afraid to deal with yourself. Come on, time.
I want to shift the question to Pastor Hines. We touched on it when you answered your last question, but I want you to expand your business owner hat. And I want you to do it in a way that speaks to a responsibility and or recognition as a business owner about the impact on community development. How is your vision for the work that you are going to do connect to community development as a Black business owner here in the house? Okay, so
I have a financial services business. I've been licensed as a financial professional about 27 years. And I specialize mostly with low income and seniors. So in that capacity, I hear and see what's going on with their needs. And when I'm there as a business owner, my pastor hat is still on. And you hear people talk about their situation. People are dying, family members don't have jobs, barely making it. And I began to listen and think, I'm here talking to them about one thing, but I'm hearing something else. It's not unusual for me to pray with them, even though I'm not there in that capacity. And what they're talking about is, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? And you do hear a lot of hopelessness. So what it becomes, as a pastor, think about what can happen, particularly, I'm speaking specifically about Adelanto, what can be done to interface with some of the political leaders to talk about transitional housing? What can we do here to talk about employment opportunities? Because people talk about, well, I live here, but I have to drive so far to go to work. Or I don't have a car. So now what? Okay, you have to catch the bus. So we find ourselves trying to come up with solutions to some of these problems. And as what I was saying previously, a lot of it is just connection. Connecting them with resources on one hand, but then internally also trying to find those resources and bring them to the community where they live. Because many times on Sunday, people say, I have to walk here. Or they get there and they say, can you feed us? Family, we don't have any. So we started right away with our ministry. I got that from Pastor Paul. We started serving food every week for people that was food insecure. After church, everybody stays that wants to stay and have a hot meal. That would just meet the needs of the community. You preached the gospel as Jesus did, but he also fed people and met them where they were. So it's all about connecting people on one hand, and then finding the resources to bring here in Adelanto, specifically, and to the high desert at large, to find ways to meet people where they really are. And that can be difficult, particularly in a city that's been under-resourced like Adelanto. And I appreciate what's going on now with the new leadership team that's in place, but a lot of people look at Adelanto as a step-child situation, while other cities being the larger cities. But I'd say, and I declare, this city is on its way to largeness and blessings.
So I'm going to shift the question just a bit to Pastor Paul. And here's how I'm going to do it. Pastor Hines just talked about community development as it pertains to the constituents, the congregants, those that we live among, worship with, and potentially would work alongside us. So one of the things that I know as a business owner that's kind of chapping my eye real serious right now is COVID pay. And the abilities that some of my staff have to assert the impact of COVID in ways that I can't confirm, right? I can't contend, and when it's time to do payroll, have to account for whether I like to or not. Right? And so understanding that there are positive impacts and negative impacts, as a business owner, I face some that are financially oftentimes feel very weighty and negative. But necessary, I get it. So as a business owner here in the high desert, I'm gonna ask you,
how is this community developed? The community of business owners, members of the Black Chamber, how are you going to, in your role, help to put forward that level of collaboration or some new modeling, like, as it pertains to the network of Black businesses in the Highlands?
Good question. When you mentioned about like staff turnover and people can just don't show up with any reason, not feeling well, I'm sniffled. So we experienced that over the last year. You have the breakouts in the office and they have to be shutting things down. Fortunately, the big thing we have to be is extremely creative. I remember when, for the whole COVID period, we only had to close the clinics, I think, for just 2 weeks. We had to just quickly move into telehealth, had people work from home, get extremely creative, moving equipment to different people's homes. They could actually work from there. There's the pharmacy stuff there, referrals there. There was a time when we had to get out of the office and we had to check in person from their house, doing the intake, connecting them on a phone stop. I mean, so, you know, when Mark about resiliency, it also breeds creativity, where if you have a goal and you know we have to make this goal, then we be very creative in how we have to do it, to make it happen. As a community of business people, there has to be, I think, in my mind, what has helped us is the ability to have a think tank where people can integrate, share ideas, and come up with some new models. That's what we've had to do the last year and a half, is speak to other people like mine and you know, who's facing the same thing. And then in that kind of context, came up with some thoughts as to how we're going to do it. So right now we're working on a new building, and it's how we're going to do it for 10 years from now, which is how we're going to be completely telehealth ready. I mean, it's the future is upon us. We can't think in terms of what we're doing now in terms of yesterday's market. We have to think in terms of the market 5-10 years from now and build now for that time. So when it comes to even churches and technology and virtual experiences and telehealth and online stuff, we have to just move in that direction, because that's the whole direction of the entire world. It's not just, I know it's not our city alone. Right. And if we, in this development season, can actually make investment now, we'll reap it then. I think sometimes the challenge we have is when things are tight, it's the best time to start reinventing, start investing, and spend some money now in preparing for 10 years from now. Instead of waiting for 10 years from now to happen to us, and then we're trying to catch up. Before COVID, there were dialogue and conversations about even church. I remember we talked about, hey, a day is coming when more people will be watching and engaging in church online than in person. So build it in that way. And what happened? COVID happened, and we're caught like, oh my goodness, we didn't make it in time to be ready, because we thought we had 10 years to do it. And so for me, I think for the chamber and for business people to think about is pulling together think tanks that actually look into a futuristic view, say, hey, what's it going to be like in 10 years? And let's start thinking through processes. Let's start thinking through investment. Let's start thinking through technology, not in a reactionary way, but in a progressive way that you're ahead of the curve, you know? And just before my time is completely up, one of the things I wanted to mention in terms of business people is don't miss the value of the believers in your businesses, in your organizations. Often, you know, we have state to the city, state to the community, and what is often forgotten is that the reason there are people who are self-sacrificing, the reason that there are people who show up early, leave late, work hard, the reason they come with energy and joy is because they have an experience with Christ and a vibrant relationship that allows them to come to work with a different level of passion. See? And therefore, if we minimize it, if we lock them down from being able to go to church and put pressure like, oh, it's nothing, church is not a football game. It's a time of spiritual renewal, strengthening, building your relationship with Christ, so that we even better workers at work. Are you with me? You see, people think, well, if somebody have an addiction or a health issue, give them time to do that. But I'm telling all the business people today, if you give the believers that work in your office the space, the flexible hours, that they can go and take in their worship and experience God, you would have people who would pay you back in energy, in time, in passion, double what everybody else does. I'm telling you, the secret to your success is blessing those people. Because if you do, an extra thing happens to you that you can't actually quantify immediately. And so therefore, we have seen it in the clinics we have and the business we're involved in, where that energy comes. And so don't minimize it. Their spiritual passion makes a big difference. And that's the case.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We're just about to wrap our session, and we're so thankful to you for allowing us the time to just dialogue with each other. I'm going to ask the three pastors who have not to just take a moment. So we talked about equity, we talked about COVID, we talked about workforce development, economic development, and capacity. All in about 40 minutes. I think we're good. But what I'd ask you to do, to just take a moment, and the one thing that resonates as a result of hearing the eternal return on investment and how that influences the prosperity and the success of the business that you own and operate.
So I think it's real simple. COVID has taught us all tomorrow is not promised. And we were just talking about it last week, and I said, you really got to focus on what you can put in the U-Haul when you go to heaven. And if it doesn't fit the U-Haul, if it don't make it to heaven, you got to start thinking about your priorities. And so I think across the board, whether you're a religious person or not, COVID brought mortality to our front door over and over and over. Most people only think about eternity when someone close to them passes away, but a lot of times there's distance in that. So it can be years before you experience another person passing away. What COVID did was say every week the Thanksgiving. And I think it caused a different eternal shift in people. So I would just say that the return on investment, you have to spend your time like railroad tracks. The train needs both tracks. So you have to be prepared for life, but you have to also be prepared for beyond. And if you're not doing the beyond one, the life one is not going to matter.
Amen. For a moment, and then we'll wrap.
Everything that he said, I have not seen in my lifetime for the last 2 years so much death. And it is hit home for me personally. I've been in so many funerals, and in my own personal faith, it has brought me closer to God, where I have had to question my own position with the Lord. And I find myself going deeper with Him now. I find myself at a different place in my relationship because so many things have happened. I've seen so much over the last 2 years. So the answer simply would be, not only should we be relevant in this generation, but we have to get back as pastors to what's really important, and that is personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Preaching that, teaching that, exemplifying that, shouting it from the mountaintop. What is your relationship with Jesus Christ in this generation? People are dying, people are passing on, And as pastors, our call is to be any clearer. We have to preach the gospel in a clear way. We have to demonstrate it. We have to walk it out by faith in the name of Jesus.
If anything has happened through this period of time, I think that I can create our church, our leadership, is that we need grace in this space. That's what we need. We just need grace in this space. God's unmerited favor in this time. Because all of us are in a different space and we're in a different place. But if we don't turn around and get back and say that we are where we are because of the grace of God, we're still here. Some don't have masks on, some don't have masks on, some don't believe in the whole 9 yards. And our world is being divided by color. Red, blue, mask, no mask. We need grace in this space.
Amen.
And we have grace in this space that we understand the fact that you may not believe in the vaccination, but they respect the fact that I believe in that. But I gotta believe that I gotta respect your space as well. But at the same time, we still have to live in the same space. So what do we need? Grace. Look beyond our fault and just see our needs. And our need is that we need to survive. We can't survive, so we can't get along. So we're going to take the chamber, amen, to a whole nother level. We will need grace in this space. That we can look beyond who we are and how do we change people, change family, change community, and then change nations. We do that through the Lord Jesus Christ.
For allowing us our time. If you're a business owner, give yourself a round of applause. Because COVID has killed people, COVID has killed churches, COVID has decimated communities, and a lot of businesses have closed. So if your business has survived and you're here, receive the blessings of God.
Give it up one more time for the brothers. We almost, we at halftime now. We almost there. We almost there. Bear with us. Earlier we had, this brother just gonna stand right here in front of me and just go. We got it. Yeah. Y'all talking about football or something? Excuse me. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, Burgundy Field. Burgundy Field. If you have a Burgundy Field sports down there, always, I think it's something on the way or something like that. Now, let me get it back.
Young Visionaries Youth Leadership Academy has been servicing the Inland Empire for over 15 years. Youth development programs, employment development opportunities.
If you can hear me clap once, if you can hear me clap twice, I learned that in the school. We gonna have networking, right after this. We're gonna have ministers get through the program, and still have some great people coming up. Also, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge we have a Brothers in America, Yanto is back there, give her a hand. Fantastic. And if you're able right now, can you take your seats? So we can get going again. So I don't want to bring the next speaker up and everyone is still having conversations, things like that. If you see me, please put your hand up when you see me like this. This music works sometimes. That works, I see. You got to keep doing this. When you see me, put your hand up like this. Yeah. When you see me, put your hand up. You're in the right hand, you don't got your hand up. Yeah. When you see me, put your hand up like this. Let me see. If you can see me, put your hand up like this. I see some hands now. Because if your hand is up, it's down, that means you're not listening right now. I learned this they do this in school. You see me, put your hand up. This brother getting right now, you want his hand down. Bishop, they not obedient. Some of them not obedient. I'm going to say that the brother doesn't right, try to roll his eyes like he wasn't. Fantastic. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. This next speaker, I just wanted to get you guys' attention. This brother came out from Los Angeles, just to spend a little bit of time with you guys as well this morning. From the Council General Israel of Los Angeles, the Council General Dr. Hillel Newman. I want to spend a little bit of time because his brother came all the way out, so we just want to appreciate you and thank you and come on up and say something to our people.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello. Where I come from, we say shalom. Shalom. Shalom means hello, it means goodbye, but it also means peace. Let peace be unto you. My friends, it is my extreme pleasure to be here with you at this summit. And for those who have not met me yet, my name is Hillel Newman, and I'm the Consul General of Israel in Los Angeles to the Pacific Southwest, which means we represent the state of Israel to the Pacific Southwest. And I'd like to open with recognitions. First of all, Terrence. The mayor, he was sitting next to me, I don't know where he is now. Elected officials, faith leaders, we just heard on the platform, and all distinguished people here. On behalf of the state of Israel, which is the one and only Holy Land, promised land, I extend a hand of friendship and wish good health and success to all. We are excited to be a sponsor of today's summit to demonstrate a clear message of friendship and support. Israel is a small country, even smaller than New Jersey, actually. But we have a rich history, an extremely diverse society, and a successful economy. Despite our small size and extreme challenges, we thrive. We prospered because of our determination, because of our will to survive, and our most valuable resource our human resources. We do not enjoy rich natural resources like some of our neighbors. We never had oil fields or gas reservoirs. All we had was the power of innovation. And despite the arid desert conditions, and here we are in the desert, we made the desert flourish with the use of modern irrigation systems and water preservation. From the growth of oranges and the export of oranges, which was our main GDP at the beginning of the state, we transitioned to the development of the technology and the engineering to grow oranges. We then moved on to smart cities, smart mobility, health, and cyber. Our medical technology is now among the leading factors in getting out of COVID-19. You know, we look very often at the negative aspects, like COVID-19. We all suffered sickness, sometimes even death. But with every bad thing, there's also something positive sometimes. And we can focus on the positive. And out of COVID-19, there was tremendous human ingenuity. And we developed new medical devices, innovation in the medical field, remote diagnostics, all kinds of things have developed from even better things. As we all know, the world is changing. Technology and artificial intelligence have become the driving forces of the future. The global market is moving from natural resources towards innovation. If you compare the top 10 companies a decade ago and the top 10 companies today, you will witness this transition. From BP and Gazprom, there's moved to Facebook and Amazon. In this context, through necessity, Israel had a head start and became a global leader due to its early implementation of innovation and modern technology. We look forward to sharing our experiences and our best practices with the Black Chamber of Commerce here, and we know we can work together and learn from each other for the benefit of us all. We believe that all human beings should cooperate and share and support each other. This is especially true for the Israeli, Jewish, and African American communities. The unique shared history between the African American community and the Jewish community is one of respect and understanding. The relationship runs deep. I am reminded that Jewish leaders marched shoulder to shoulder with Martin Luther King Jr. in the fight for equality and freedom. During Black History Month, Israel stands in solidarity with the African American community, recognizing the extreme suffering and hardships that have been endured. It is only natural for Israel to align itself with the Black community in the spirit of cooperation and sharing of knowledge. Israel extends great efforts globally. We have many initiatives led by the government of Israel, NGOs, and sometimes the business community of Israel, across the globe, and especially in Africa, focusing in the fields of irrigation, food security, and water technologies. We aspire to expand our activity here in the Southwest, especially in the high desert region. One approach is matching Israeli innovation to community needs, and matching Israeli companies with local initiatives. We see this summit today as a springboard to future relationships and deepening of connections. Before I conclude, I'd like to mention two practical aspects with which we can move forward in the future. Firstly, we can connect Israeli companies with local companies in order to promote cooperation. More than that, we can connect this Chamber of Commerce with the Israeli South Californian Chamber of Commerce, which is in Los Angeles, and you can work together. Lastly, also, we have a faith-based community here. There is a strong connection with Israel as a faith-based community, we all know that. We can also come to the churches
and come to your communities and speak about our nation. I just like to mention that one of the pastors mentioned that he comes from the Burning Bush Church. Well, we all remember what was the Burning Bush. Burning bush was Moses standing in front of the burning bush and getting the commandments to bring the people of Israel out of slavery from Egypt. Friends, we can start today. Allow me to express my deep appreciation for the invitation to be here with you. We are proud to sponsor. We have come to deliver this message of friendship and collaboration. We will be glad to connect with all of you and enhance our cooperation. Finally, a small gift. I'm not going to read the book now. A small gift to terrorists. Thank you very much. Give it up for him one more time. They was calling me back to back. I was like, I'm suspicious. But they really just wanted to extend that olive branch to friendship and collaboration. And I think that is a great thing for the Black Chamber of Commerce as well, though, too. So we extend that back to you, and we appreciate you for coming here. Thank you. Now, we're gonna go into the next panel, the last one. All right, so y'all bear with us. We're doing good, but we had the sisters come up. Then was like my aunties, they was in the house. And then the brothers came up, right? And so now we're gonna bring the sisters back. These are other aunties. But this is our business panel. I'm telling you, even down here, we have the mayor of Rialto back there, the mayor of Montana was just texting me, wishing us well today as well, too. Aunt Warren. Man, the sisters be doing it. Brothers, man, we got the pastors up here, but we got to work on some stuff. Learning, working on it though. But I want to say thank you for the brothers and the sisters. Thank you for everyone that came out. And she's going to facilitate our business panel. We got some fantastic people. I was talking to some of these sisters on the phone. I'm like, you motivational speakers, you got me fired. I don't my own business, but I'm pretty go through the they was fired up. And I know y'all know Ms. Regina. Ms. Regina is incredible. If you do not know her, you better get to know her. And the rest of this panel too, because this lady is everything I need to know of you, I call Regina. Regina, I get my hashtags and everybody knows Karen, but I'm mine. Everybody knows Regina. I can't get no place without her permission around here. So when they you want to introduce your panel, or you want to, I'm gonna let you do that. I'm about to go sit down and let you do your professional thing.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I got to flip it up. How's that? Better? Yeah. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let's just take a look around this room and see the beauty that's in this room. Yeah. Just take a look at that. And let's applaud that because these financial felt held hostage by anything. But this COVID has done a number on me. And to the point that just 2 weeks ago, I was feeling like really COVID fatigue, right? I was like, I am so over it, I'm snatching this mask off, I don't care, you just gonna have to come forward and you don't really want this fight, right? But the upside is, it looks like we are coming through.
Yeah.
Today gives me hope that we are not only coming through, but we are coming through resilient, right? We are coming through better than where it found us when it started, right? We are coming through it together. And that's what today is about. And where is Terrence and Stevan? I want, Stevan, please stand up. And where is Terrence? Terrence, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of everybody that is in this room for this vision that you had, that you have now made come true, right? Look at this room. This room is packed with power players. This room is packed with the change that we all want and need to see. We are it, and you brought us together. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart for your commitment, for your vision, for your stick-to-itness, right? I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and everybody that's in this room, because without that, we would not. I get started in my panel, I want to say and acknowledge some folks. In this room, we've got some amazing people. There are some unsung heroes in this room. And I want to say to those whose names may not be called today, whose pictures may not appear in the program, we see you. We know who you are, and we need you to keep steady in the work that you're doing. It takes all of us. I want to call out somebody in particular, Pastor Racy and Risa, would you stand? Because this is a woman that when I met her over 5 years ago, this woman was going out into the community, rain or shine, daylight, nighttime, it didn't matter. And she was going to get the homeless, meet them where they were, to feed them, to clothe them, to get them to where they could take showers, to get them attached to the resources that they need to try and take a positive step in their life. And to this day, this woman is still doing that work and has added to her plate that she is mentoring our young girls and our young women. And she is arming them with what they need for the spiritual warfare that they encounter, right? For the day-to-day challenges that they encounter. And quite often, hers is not a name that we hear. But today, we honor you, and we acknowledge you, and we see you. So thank you for your Now, I also have a young woman who is new to this community, and when I say new, I mean she's new. I think she just flew in, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Most of us know the name of Kevin Mahaney, right, from St. Mary's. If you haven't worked with him, you've heard of him, you know his work, especially here in Adelanto, just a champion. Kevin moved on last year to pursue other opportunities. But you know God does provide. And it is my pleasure to introduce this young, brilliant, beautiful woman, Erica Phillips, who is now moving back to this. And I want to give her this title, so I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up because you've earned it. She is the Manager of Community Health Investments for St. Mary's Medical Center. Welcome to our community. moment in, because we get ready to put you to work. You know, today I have, it's just really a privilege, and I have been so blessed and privileged in my life. This room is filled with people that I know, that I personally and professionally know and have relationships with. And I cherish all of that, because we are only as strong as the networks that we build. And so that's critically important to me. But today is very special because most of my work over the past 30 years that I've been in this community has been focused on women and children and education. And so Terrence asked me today, and really gave me a great privilege, to bring up 3 women who are, they're a powerhouse. I can't even find the words to capitalize and really articulate accurately who these women are in our community. But they are trailblazers. They are get her done, is what they are, right? They are courageous in their stance. They don't care if they're disrupting the system because they believe that they are divinely ordered by God to be disruptors. And they have worn that and are wearing that armor proudly. And so I'm going to ask these 3 ladies to join me up here, and we're going to engage in a conversation that I think you will find inspirational, motivational, and will help you to put on your armor and move forward. I'm going to ask Miss Dolores Williams, a millionaire montessori. Dolores also has started Rock, which is reimagining our community. So she is an advocate for taking our community to the next level. Dolores, welcome. This next lady, I'm getting to know, and I gotta tell you, I feel humbled every time I have an opportunity to just be in her presence, let alone have a conversation. This lady is setting the high desert on fire. She is cultivating leaders in every nook and cranny that you can believe, from every age category. You talked about being diverse. She is diverse in her mission. Dr. Kenesha Williams, will you please join me up here? Nation, and she is building a nation right here in the high desert. Thank you so much for joining us. And this last woman is a woman to not, by any stretch of the imagination, be deceived by her stature. She is a powerhouse player, let me tell you. This lady has beat cancer, and she beat cancer with a vengeance. She takes it on each and every year and tells everybody, I beat it, and it won't be coming back. Take that to the bank, right? She also is a life coach, and she has done amazing work, not just here in our community, but outside of our community. She is also a 2-time best-selling author. Her book that she did last year, which is an anthology of 23 women, is called Phenomenal Woman. And there's no better way to introduce her than present to you Tasha Champion, the Phenomenal Coach. So all I can do is tell you, it was lit this morning because of the beautiful job that you did for us and the wonderful women who were represented here who are queens. And we pray for you daily because we know what you're facing out there on that front line as electeds. So thank you for your commitment to be true to who you are and serving us and making sure our voices are heard. We appreciate you beyond what you know. To those kings who sat on this dais just prior to this, Thank you. Thank you, men of God, for holding it down for us. For praying for us when we didn't even have sense enough to pray for ourselves. For being businessmen who were able to establish businesses whose doors are still open. Right? We say thank you, Kings, and we see you for who you are, and you are greatly appreciated in our community. Now, we brought the fire. So what we're going to try to do is I got 7 questions that I think will take you on a journey of understanding who these beautiful queens are. But most importantly, that you're going to walk out of here with if not one nugget, at least 2 or 3 that will help you as you are moving forward and navigating your way in this business that affects us in a lot of different ways, especially because we happen to be Black. Right? And so that's what we're going to try and give you today. So bear with me while I try to make this little technology work. You made it look so easy on the Friday. You got it. Thank you. And I need some glasses, right? Okay. So, like I said, there are 7 questions. I know it's a tall order, but we've got a couple of minutes for each question. If we make that work by calculations, we'll get it. I think we can do it, okay? I'm gonna start with Mr. Morris, and I do want each of you to answer this question. Please tell us in a very concise manner how you got started in your current businesses.
Good morning and thank you.
That's my job.
That's my job.
Use your outside voice, Mr. Lord.
I'm going to use that. I'm just finding out. Okay, how did I get started? Millionaire Money Kids is said to be started in my home in 2005. But the journey started way before then. Had it not been for my son, Greg, who's here today, who was my really hard to raise child, who kept me on my knees and prayed, and never stopped praying because it works, because he's sitting at that table today. Gave me a life-changing event, left me with his 2 children, Khalil, now 24. And his sister Nadia, who would be here, but she's in law school. Gave my husband and I a life-changing, did I say life-changing experience? I'm already on the okay. I have to get this part out, because I've been traumatized for a long time. In the midst of my aerospace engineering career, I even met a brother out there saying he used to work for the CCI. I didn't even know people lived up here from CCI, but I went to work for a woman-owned organization, running the organization, an engineering male-dominant organization. My son left 2 children with me that I had to quit my career, make a decision to quit my career. So in the midst of my living room, I called a few people that I had met here. I didn't really know anyone, wasn't a part of the community and everything. And Millionaire Mike Kids was born. It was born from a vision. I want to say from a passion, but I didn't know I wanted to. So starting in 2005, I had to make that life-changing decision to be a stay-at-home mom with the support of my husband and become engaged in my children's education, in my community, and in the lives of many of you who have blessed me tremendously. That's how Millionaire Minded Kids started. And I'm hoping she'll come back and ask some more questions so I can say a little bit more.
I will. We're gonna go to Dr. Kalusi when we come to.
Well, good morning again. So excited to be here. So I've been in the field of public education for 22 years by way of first grade teacher, kindergarten teacher, fifth, fourth grade, and then I had the pleasure of being an assistant principal in Rialto for 2 years, and then I've been 13 years as an elementary principal. So this year by day, I'm serving as principal on assignment for self-leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But it was birthed in me a couple of years ago after I got my doctorate degree. I knew that God was taking me on a path, but it just wasn't very tangible. And then I went through my own personal fall as a leader, very public fall, that I locked my own self into. But it was one of the best things that could have ever happened because therein birthed the real Kenesha, right? Just in 2016. And so other than the name of Jesus, my absolute favorite word is transformation. So that came about 2016, 17, 18. I went to a conference in 2019. I got into a committee. I have 2 doctorate degrees. I'm a schoolgirl, right? And so I went to a conference in 2019, and I sat there, and I knew that my life would never be the same. I knew that for the last few years, God had been saying, I'm moving you, I'm changing you. There's a new direction in you. I sat at that conference, and I began to discover my destiny. And so in 2020, January 7th, I launched a mastermind. Didn't fully quite know what I was doing, but I had the fire of God behind me saying, I'm sending you because there are people that need what you have in you, and still not being able to put my finger on that. So just a little over 2 years later, I have absolute pleasure of adding value to people when it comes to leadership, when it comes to transformation. And if you want to be illuminated and motivated, just come sit with me for a few seconds, because you're not going to leave my presence without feeling like you cannot tolerate it. Now, my day, I'm still a principal, and so my night job, my destiny overtakes my day job. So pray for your girl.
And Ms. Phenomenal Tasha Jen.
Can you guys hear me? I speak pretty loud. Yes. So, yes, I am the phenomenal coach of Champion Empowerment, because I have an emphasis on being able to inspire and motivate women to live out loud, live their best life, and most importantly, to live a life of purpose, because for women, especially women of color, we are all taught to minimize and hide ourselves in the name of our families, in the name of our friends, and in the name of just people that we know. And I wanted women to step up. And what I realized in my own life is I had walked down the aisle and gotten married, even though God was like, don't get to the end of that aisle. And I won't lie, I was like, God, I got this. And ended up in divorce because God was right. Then my, what I call husband sat me and my children down, and he said, I need to restart my life as if I was never married or had kids. You're a great mom, you'll be fine. And so for the last 9 years, I have 100% raised my children on my own. Well, if that wasn't enough, then I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and 2 weeks later, actually my sister was diagnosed first, and then 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed. And during this time, it gave me the opportunity to really learn who is Tasha Champion. Not wife, not mother, not daughter, not friend. Who is Tasha Champion? And I got to intimately know myself, know my strength. And one thing, I got to learn my value. And what I wanted to know, what I wanted to see for other women is to know that you are so resilient. What you've been through does not define where you're going and where you are. And so I had to make it my mission to show women just how powerful they are, no matter what cycle they've been through. They can come out and be the woman that they were born to be, because each of you have a phenomenal presence and love and brilliance about yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Dr. Kanisha, how did you initially build your business, And how long did it take you to become successful in carving out that space?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question for me with the space that I'm currently in, because as I said earlier, I just started on January 7th and just taught a bunch of people that were at my church that I knew would not laugh if they did, the Lord would get them, right? So I didn't even publicize this. I just said, okay, this is what I feel the Lord called me to do. And then they all showed up. And then COVID hit 2 months later, and I continued on Zoom. And then they continued to show up. So 6 months of adding value for free, because it's not about the money, it's about adding value to people. Then I was commanded to start charging. I'm like, okay, this sort of sounds like a business, but I wasn't quite clear. So then everyone paid. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe there's some type of business there. So I am actually still in that discovery phase. I hear in my ear, we have the preachers up here, but everything that I do is from the foundation of Christ. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. So everything I do is because I've heard it in the ear. So I hear and then I go. I hear, then I go. So I'm still in the development thereof, but I can guarantee you mark it down. Like Paul said, I'm apprehending that which is already apprehended myself.
And how long did it take you to become successful in carving out the space that you?
I'm gonna start from the latter part. I became successful when I decided to live in the purpose that God had called me to be. Because I was living and doing everything for everybody else, which was beneficial because along this journey we call life, you have to do things because God then prepares you through your experiences for what He has called you to be and to do. And so I had to go through that. And what I learned within myself is that if I can just simply be a vessel of my experiences and what God needs me to do, then He would always bring me the women that I was meant to serve. Because of course, in this space where any entrepreneur, you're always worried like, well, am I gonna find clients? Am I gonna find customers? Am I gonna find people that understand what I do? And how I was able to carve out my expertise was just ask God, who am I here to serve? Because there are a million coaches out here, but you specifically have people that I'm supposed to work with. So take me to them, bring them to me, make us meet, do whatever you gotta do, but make sure that you give me a space that I can just help women succeed.
Ask you the same question. Oh, okay. How did you initially build your business and how long did it take you to become successful in carving out your space?
I initially built my business one block at a time and one child at a time. Started building my business in 2005. It took me about 3 years to really get it up and running. You know, I have a non-profit organization, and it's a little bit different from a profitable business. A non-profit organization, which most of you may not know, really don't belong to you. It belongs to the government, right? Because it allows tax deduction, donation, and real accountability. But the need of the children who are consistently placed in my care today and was placed in my care back in 2005. I happened to go to a school where parents were going down the hill to work. And I used to hear chatter amongst principals and teachers about Black and brown children whose parents must not care because they were just simply not engaged, right? Now understanding that these folks are driving down the hill, they moved up here to have affordable living, affordable housing, and they had to leave their babies. Like I had to do when I first started, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, being on the highway, maybe not even seeing them till the next day, because we didn't get home until 9 or 10 o'clock. And how dare you say we don't care? I was participating with my own babies, and I saw these kids pushed to the side. I remember being in the first meeting where I met Regina and Dr. Denson. You know, we were talking about, and Maria Alfaro, what we were talking about. Hiring Black and Brown administrators and teachers that just simply look like our children, so our children could have go-to people and feel a sense of family. So Millionaire Mind Kids, I think Bishop Denson was the first to bring his kids. It started in my living room. I was promoting financial literacy. Actually, it was behavior modification program because, you know, I never ever told a child that they bad. I would say, you have undesirable behavior. But I can tell you, my 2 grandchildren prompted me to start the behavior modification program in the name of financial literacy. I carved out my space immediately. But as an African-American woman here in the high desert, I couldn't acquire funding in the high desert until 2016. Not one funder, not one city hall, not one funder here in the high desert. So being connected with aerospace, all my funding was outside. So it took me about 5-6 years to really build the brand. I want to talk about the brand. Because wherever you hear Millionaire Mind Kids, the brand is standards of excellence. We don't measure our kids against their white counterparts academically, socially, culturally, in any way. We measure them against excellence. Excellence. And so as a result of that, one child at a time, one brick at a time, $1 at a time. The total investment was my 401k program, my funding, my retirement started this program. And I don't even think I've gotten a full paycheck yet. But guess what? We've served over 10,000 kids and families in this high desert. And not one has to pay a dime. We have 15 airline pilots. We have engineers. We've sent over 200 students to top university as debt-free as possible, if not free. So it is not I who do this work. I have sense enough to know that it is not I who do this work, but the Father who did it.
All right, now.
I want to take it kind of to another level. What we have here today represents different businesses and business models and small businesses, entrepreneur type businesses, nonprofit businesses. In this room, I know there are a lot of businesses. Those are the nature of your businesses. But also, I know that one of the challenges we have, and it is really made very clear by COVID, is the importance of having a relationship with financial institutions and how we do that, right? So I'm going to ask you, ladies, how important are relationships with financial institutions and the ability to raise capital for your businesses? And then I also, there's 2 parts to this question. I want to know, how did you begin developing your financial network of resources? Okay? Well, Tasha, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. First off, I have to just really give an homage to you because when I was doing the first phenomenal women's brunch, It was you that taught me how to go and ask for something. Okay, I had no idea. I was so used to being a one-woman show because I was a one-woman mom, so I just assumed everything had to be done with myself. So the importance of having, whether you go to a financial institution or you just surround yourself with the right people that can lead you and guide you and give you the support that you need and lead you on the path in the right direction, sometimes that's even more important. Because if I go to a financial institution, but I don't know what I'm supposed to say, what I'm supposed to bring, how I can present myself, but Regina does, and she can say, Tasha, this is exactly what you want to take. Those become the most valuable tips before I can even walk through the door and say, hey, I need a $10,000 loan. The second thing that is truly important is your mindset around money. What is your relationship with money? Because if you get this money, but you don't know how to use it in your business, you don't know how to use it in your life, your relationship to your personal finances is not good, and your relationship to your business finances is not good as well. So it's really important to make sure you have a good relationship and a money mindset before you even go before anyone to ask for a loan or to get sponsorships or to get anything. So I gotta say thank you, because you set me on that path to understand how to create another source of income to help with the things that I was doing. Mr. Lewis.
Finances in business is extremely important. In the beginning, I started my business as a teacher with my own 401k. Even though I had read many rich dad, poor dad books that says don't use your own money. But one of the biggest ways that I started to acquire, one, through my own personal aerospace connections. We had NASA, that I worked with in aerospace and some other corporations. So most of my funding initially came outside of the high desert through corporations. I have to give Regina a little bit of credit over here too, because when we started the aerospace company, our aerospace academy, one of the things we did, we got together and we said, how can we get some of these companies to finance? Revenue is not always in the form of money. So one of the ways, after packaging myself professionally, entering the banks, one of the key ways that I started to receive so much support and financing, when people turned me down financially, we put on our sneakers and went out to all the aerospace companies. And it's like, well, we can't give you money. That's okay. Give me people. Give me engineers. Every one of my students could benefit from industry level professionals. And I knew once we got them into the Millionaire Mind Care Center, they were going to open up their checkbooks. They were going to send volunteers. That was the niche. It was like, okay, if you can't financially support us. So our financial literacy program brought Wells Fargo volunteers in. So before I knew it, I had Wells Fargo and Union Bank to finance my financial literacy program. In the aviation industry, one of the biggest well-kept secrets here in the high desert, Southern Logistics Airport. I have business partners with every single company out there. Once I trick them into the Millionaire Mind Care or I trick them into letting me take 20 kids out to tour their facilities, they open up their checkbooks. And from then we just started to build networks of finances. We have financial support from our banks. Our business model is built on deep engaged educators, government, businesses, community leaders. And those are the folks who open up their wallets, who open up their checkbooks, and ensure that Millionaire Mind Kids is funded annually. It currently costs Millionaire Mind Kids $150,000 a year, because we serve over 300 students per year, and not one student has ever paid for her service. Okay.
But you guys can talk to her later and she'll fill you in.
So my answer is going to come from a bit of a different perspective. So the one institution is my church. And not by them giving to me, I'm a giver. I've always been a giver. I give tithe, offering to my pastors, to people. So I came from a foundation of giving to the body of Christ to advance the kingdom. Yeah. And if you remember what I said, God spoke to me about business. I wasn't going after it, but I'm a kingdom pusher. And because I'm a kingdom pusher, now God is pushing transformation. Okay? So I have given, here's funny, you said don't give. I've given about $60,000 to my own business out of my day job because I believe in what I have to give, which is hope, which is transformation, which is adding values to leaders. The second panel, they talk about capacity. If we want our businesses to succeed, we have to invest in our own capacity first. Our businesses go up as we go up. So I have had to invest in my own self, $60,000 plus $70,000. And I've had some partners come along the way because I know that the value that I give will cause us to go up, and then therefore our businesses go up, and then our communities go up. But I started with the church since I was 7 years old. I remember my first Indian experience. I gave 78 cents. And later that day, my grandfather gave me 3 crisp $1 bills. And I've been a believer in giving ever since.
But I think Mr. Wallace is in this building, right? Mr. Wallace, raise your hand.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm calling you out is because, based on what these ladies have talked about in terms of financial assistance and resources, that is part of the reason why you exist. Am I correct?
Yes, it is.
And so membership to the chamber is important, because through membership to the chamber, you have access to not only resources, right, but also access to resources that help you be prepared financially. So some of these situations may not necessarily be the situation you find yourself dealing with from a financial standpoint. But the answer, I believe, especially for us as Black business owners, lies within the doors of the African American Chamber, or the Black Chamber. And so I want to shout out Mr. Wallace, because last year, a year before, we were in COVID, so it was 2020. And they had come into an opportunity to provide COVID funding to business specific to the high desert. What I will tell you is the challenge we had to find 15 solid businesses that were Black businesses to qualify for that funding. But what I will also tell you is through Mr. Wallace, through his leadership and his staff, we found 15 Black businesses. motivational, and I'm sure we're gonna take 2 or 3 nuggets. But if you don't take anything else away from this day, this is exactly why you need to be a member of the Black Chamber, the High Desert chapter of the Black Chamber of Commerce, because of the wealthy resources that are here to help us as Black business owners take our rightful spots in our community, serving our community, right? And not being broke with a handout, but being able to also be hands up. I'm gonna close here, so I have 5 minutes.
I'll give you that, you already over, but.
I'm gonna take 5 minutes because I want to give these beautiful queens an opportunity to, if there's one thing that you wanted to make sure was said today that you haven't said, you now have the opportunity to say. Ms. Dolores?
Our children are our greatest assets. It's our responsibility and our stewardship over them to plant the seeds so that they, for a lifetime, can walk through their doors of greatness. There is not a child who walks through my organization. I think I just saw Dr. Mitchell just walk in, we were talking about finances, just gave us an after-school program. But not a child walked through our doors, or West Side Elementary, or Appalachia Elementary, and we don't greet them every single day. And just thank them for coming in to bring what they need to start their futures. So my one thing is continue to walk through your doors of greatness, stand in your power, and know that the name Millionaire Mind Kids has nothing to do with money. It's mind transformation. When we transform children, empower children and communities, we empower lives.
I'm gonna make this really quick. So for anyone that is growing, whether you're growing in your business, you're growing in your profession, or even in your personal life, there's 3 things that I want you to remember. 1, if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room.
Yes.
You gotta get around people who are going to guide you. 2, align your spirit with your goals. If they are not aligned, something is not going to go right. You have got to align your spiritual practice with the goals that you set for yourself. And the last one is look around you. Look at the 5 people that you hang around with the most, because you are the 6th person. If you were with 5 smart people, you're the 6th. If you were with 5 broke people, you're the 6th broke person.
So I'd like to leave you with, we are people of value. Each and every one of us distinctly. There's a place for all of us in this world. We don't go after money, we don't go after pop, we don't go after circumstance, we should not be going after position. As a person of value, if you begin to add value, then all of the rest will come nigh you. Go out and add value to this world. Thank you.
We'll get a great job now. There's the I should have let you go over them. You know, they have tore the stage down this time. Somebody send me that picture too. Give it up one more time for these beautiful, sisters. They did a great job. Okay. You know, the last day now, if you can hear me, put your hand up like this. We almost there, y'all. We almost there. We're trying to keep it going. And is it there, my brother? You might get up. You might get up. If you can hear me, if you like that. If you can hear me, put your hand up like this. Some of y'all got your hand up, still trying to whisper. If you can hear me, put your hand up like this. We're on the last leg. Look at it, right now. She got her hand up like, we're all trying to tell you, this is, you can still tell me. We're on the last leg, we gotta get through with it. We're on the last leg. If you can hear me, put your hand up like this. That's how you know if you're paying attention or not. We got a fantastic brother, man. I've been knowing this brother probably about like 15, 20 years. He is now the wonderful mayor of the great city of Barstow. He drove out here. He was so excited when I talked to him on the phone and I asked him if he could keynote speak this event. I thought it was fitting. Actually, he's the first African-American mayor of that wonderful city over there. I bet he used to have a youth center in the city of Barstow around 20 years ago, working over there in the area. I don't know if you guys from Barstow would have an area called the field over there. So basically the projects out in Barstow, and he used to come out, spend his time with those young people, and also the mayor, that was the mayor at the time as well too, just to let them see success. I love what the ladies are saying on the panel, is also you have to show our kids the success that you want them to be. A good friend of mine, Reggie Webb, he always tells me, parents, you cannot hit a target that you cannot see. And that goes with success as well too. So it's very important that we have been running out today so that we can speak some words, give us some great information, impart some wisdom to us this morning. And we've had a great, give it up for all these panels as well as great people. We got some great people here today. The high desert is so rich in community and people. I was on the Zoom yesterday. I couldn't stay on. My phone was going in and out. But I know the facilitator, she said, well, name one thing we like about the high desert. I didn't get to say mine, but it has to be the people. Because the weather ain't going to be good right now. But the people is beautiful. I love being up here, hopped up with the people in this big stuff done. So I'm about to bring on the mayor. Are we okay? Down there on we good? Okay, that's fine. My mic telling me to stop. So, introduction, Dr. Paul Anthony Courtney, Mayor of Barstow, California.
Our current brother, can you hear me back there? Yes. Okay, good, good. Well, it is definitely a pleasure to stand before you all today. When I was asked to speak, I was like, okay, I can do that. And then when Terrence told me that I was the keynote speaker, I wasn't really sure what the keynote speaker was supposed to do. So I went to Google, did and I was like, maybe I'll contact the parents to let them know that I am busy. But then reality set in. And I said, no, you know something? Parents should actually receive. Black Summit, Black Youth Summit. And realizing that, I thought, wow, I'm going to tell a story about life, living, and pursuing. But the story that we tell is actually much bigger than mine. There have been so many who have led the way for my success. And I'd be remiss not to acknowledge that. I have a few notes here in front of me just in case I forget. But I must open up with all right now. Lottie-dottie and everybody. Yes, I've been there since the beginning today, and I've heard tremendous messages from the electeds, from the clergy, from the business. And actually I've interchanged many conversations with many of you here. Some familiar faces and other not so familiar faces, but faces that make a difference. Yes, I'm the first elected mayor in the city of Barstow that looks like me. And the reason I'm using and emphasizing looks like me is because that was a term that's been used with me sitting at the dais from one of those who are disturbed that I happen to be elected mayor of the city of Barstow. The city of Barstow has been incorporated since 1946. There's been a lot of things that have happened in 1946 I really didn't know about until I got into the position as the elected mayor. I was elected November 20th of 2020, sworn in December 8th. And it's been a journey. A journey. I've actually spoken to a couple of individuals today that say, hey, I didn't know you were the mayor. How did you do that? I often find myself asking the same question. How did I do that? But the fact of the matter is, when I decided to become the elected mayor of Barstow, the response that I received made me more motivated to seek the position. Because I had no idea that at the time, it was 2018, I had moved back into Barstow to request of my mom, who was gravely ill. I'm the oldest of the 6 children, so she said, baby, I'd like you to come home. Never thinking I would come back home to Barstow. I was born and raised in Barstow. I left Barstow in 1980. Moved down to the Honey Beach. Lived in Honey Beach for 30 plus some years. Drove from Barstow to Honey Beach every other day for all those years. I got up to the high desert, and long story short, went back in Barstow at mom's request. And unfortunately, my mom passed. My mom passed July last year. She was big. See me take office. However, she told me, along with my dad, what it would probably be like when I'm elected mayor in the city of Barstow. They had been in Barstow since 1952. I really believe my mom was exaggerating, and my dad was exaggerating, because because it sounded so far-fetched. My parents told me the truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God of the reality that I was going to be doing. I've been in office, November 3rd, 2020, sworn in Tuesday. It's been a year and about a month or so. In the city of Barstow, we have a lot. Those who are paying attention that we're doing in Barstow know that we're not. Because just last year in 2021, we opened up 31 new businesses in 1 year. Prior to that, this is 2015 to about 2020, Barstow had roughly opened 7 new businesses on the books in all of those years. Hey, one thing about it is Astros and Fastos speak. Hopefuls and emotionals are just what they are. Hopefuls and emotionals are people just talking. Well, the difference is we're not talking the city of Barstow, we're now walking. And it's evidence-based. It's evidence-based, which is like a big deal. A little bit about me is that my doctorate is in business administration with a concentration in entrepreneurship. I have an entrepreneur center in the city of Barstow, which we opened in 2017. And we help business get a business, but they're in business not by themselves. We do a lot of work with them. We currently have started 11 business in entrepreneur center, which is at 1041 West Main Street. That was my capstone project. I have a master's in business management, which is actually HR. I have a bachelor's in adult psychology, and I have an associate's in administration of justice. I share that with you for the fact that I understand and appreciate that education is important. It doesn't make you, but it allows you to be able to explore that and then some. Yeah, and then some. And so I emphasize education as an important asset, personal asset, for anybody who seeks in our mindset. That's where there's formal or informal. That's where, it's the traditional college or vocational. I definitely believe that the intensive is necessary once you get to the K grades to be able to achieve that intensive. It's like really, really important. I'm the oldest of the 6 kids. One brother, he passed away 7 years ago because he got onto the streets and he got consumed by drugs. One thing, the reality for our family, we learned that it didn't matter, but all of us had to go to school because in our house, the motto was, you could do a 3.2 automatically. So if you have a 3.2, you probably will. And you want to report card on because this is reality. And you're going to go to college somewhere for those 2 years. So that just was a part of I just didn't believe it would happen. But it didn't happen. I would encourage each everyone, if you get a chance, speak this up. Just read it. Read about it. And it will definitely lead you into talking about it. Because I reread this some days ago, and he talked about some of the challenges. You see, one thing, I'm not naive about racism, because I'm not. However, I do not let the ethics and the situation behind it control me. Control me. But the fact of the matter is, people watch YouTube, all kind of stuff, and the haters and the racists expect to incite for a visible delivery, which is usually makes it look not favorable for people of a darker skin sitting down. And as a result, the haters and the racists, it's wide and well. That's it. But it's the minority, not the majority. That's something we gotta keep in mind. It's the minority, not the majority. Let's talk about bar stuff. I even looked up here. Bar stuff, we got like all right stuff. It says bar stuff, we got scientists. Man, we gotta continue to work on things like that. But see, bar stuff used to be the thing. See, when I was younger, Barstow was like the town. Barstow with the mall, etc. Then you went down the hill to the Central City Mall, whatever, on the other side. However, something happened. Barstow not a little town. Barstow, we just recently got to 25,000 residents. Actually, 25,049 in the last census. Ridgeville, a couple 100,000 almost. The Spirit, a couple 100,000 almost. Atlanta, 50,000. Hot Valley, 80,000. It's like, wow, what happened at Marshall? So I'm not going to go over these statistics or issues you may not know. But the fact is, we got off track. And the great news is, we're back on track. It's evidence-based, and those who are paying attention to what's happening out of Marshall, it's pretty amazing. It's simple, pretty amazing. You heard different speakers speak about high desert, what's happening. Still, high desert, and what's happening. We have a rise in economic development growth post-pandemic in high desert. And Warsaw has arrived, we are part of high desert, and we are connecting the dots. When I say we are, the majority of the councils are connecting dots. I met with all the elected leaders in the cities and islands. All of them here, we just had a meeting 3 weeks ago. And they're walking, we are part of growing high desert. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, that I'm black. What matters most is effectiveness. And I just happen to be black. And it's really important that, for me personally, that message continues to move forward. Not as a victim of being black, but victim. And I happen to be black. And I did it. And I happen to be, yes, the first African American mayor in the city of Buffalo. Like I said, I'm elected, so elected is a 4-year term. And it's you kind of see me all morning, I've been on the phone, I'm on outside, this, and this is unbelievable. You have no idea. I signed up for it. I asked for it. And I'm thankful to so many that have helped me through this journey. We have our retired mayor is still right here. Unbelievable. He endorsed and supported me during the journey. Yeah, comes to me and says, I want to support the people. I'm like, Okay, Mr. Tim, no problem. He joined the team. He's been there the whole entire thing. I'm like, my oldest of 3 daughters, Amber Louise. Unbelievable. She was at the general manager of my main business that I do, Pay Services Corporation. We're a government contractor. We've been government contracting for like a few decades. So she helps facilitate all that. I have a lifetime friend of mine who's been around for a long time. He's my brother. You know, brothers, they get the boxing match. I've been in the boxing match with a few times, but the love has never been lost. More than respect. That's Benny to Frederick, right there. We're actually boxing right now or something. City staff really helped and believed in me even for the election. And love you, brother. Parents, I remember we connected the dots out of the Bighorn Community Center in Barstow, probably 20 years ago. Yeah. Unbelievable. I knew then, I said, I don't know who this young brother is. But I gotta hang on to him. Because he is a world changer. And I want to be just like him. Thank you, brother. Where's Regina at? Regina still there? Oh my God. BBL. I remember I met Regina with my brother here. I don't know what it was. But I remember it really, she said, and Gerald went through the battery and list of all the things that she is all about. I said, Regina, thank you. Thank you for remembering, never forgetting, and living in purpose, living life. Because you are doing things that are legendary. We will miss you on a regular basis. And thank you for that. And I will see you on the 24th. A believer in Barstow. This is the person that has a whole lot of property. And see, you know, communities, and this stuff is all about property and development and making things happen. Can be. Thank you, brother. It's like a big deal. Yeah, I wish I could like share it. I can't. Because we have closed sessions and all kinds of stuff. And I'm wondering that. But that's it. And Martha Rochelle. More than a friend. That's your family. Dear to my mom. See, she was dear to my mom, so she's automatically dear to me. You ready? A cancer survivor and a lot of things. Many things. I know I'm a little off script. However, I've got a few more things I got to talk about. Stay hungry and stay foolish. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. 1 Corinthians 1:18. Because foolishness of God is wiser than man, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. The question is, what are you going to change? You're going to change. Let's begin. What are you willing to change to become the change? This is the challenge that I deal with. I know when I ran for mayor of Barstow, I yearned for a new population of voters to get engaged and believe in democracy, especially in Barstow, to change the direction of Barstow. That's what it's all about. Because when I asked to come home, I came home. But when I got home, I was like, what happened? And then when I announced I was considering running for mayor, elected mayor, and the response back was like, I said, I gotta do this. There was 5 people there, the incumbent, myself, and 3 others who were recruited by the incumbent. I didn't split the vote. However, the victory was sweet. There was a 2-1 victory over the incumbent, with the incumbent's others scrambling to get the other 60% that was left over. So I got 40% of all of it, and they split, if you were 4, split 6%. So do the numbers. In that case, 2 plus 2, then it's 5, not 4. But then he goes 4. It was unbelievable. I felt by being elected, many residents will be restored to believing in the democracy of Barstow. And it has worked. One thing I knew for sure, I was elected, especially the kids, we know that Barstow could be better. Just the black kids, Hispanic kids, the white kids, the kids that are unsure, that kind of like fall in place, they don't know that things are changing their life. That alone has made it worth it to me. Because those kids know that. We have mayors, of course, we have all kinds of things that we're doing for kids to restore hope in Barstow. For one day, they didn't feel like I felt when I left Barstow, I would never go back. And I went back for a different reason, but I got back. I hope to restore hope in the kids, but when they grow up, go away, get it for them, but they'll come back to our community and make a difference. So that's like what I'm hoping for, and I'm praying for, and I believe that those accomplishments are being made. So you know, I hope. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your home and your voice. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. And most importantly, learn to listen to those individuals who truthfully, honestly, and sincerely want the best for you. And you repeat that. As you learn this, especially if you're in an elected position, politics is cool. It's something else. Yeah. Learn to listen to those individuals who truthfully, honestly, and sincerely want the best of you. We all have a choice. We all have a choice. Live life and make decisions based on your faith or be guided by fear. The choice is ours. I'll say this to you. Guilty. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. That's what makes a difference. Thank you all so much.
get better than that. Give it up for the mayor of the city of Barstow, Dr. Paul Anthony Porter. Thank you very for coming out. We on the last leg. First of all, I want to say, Ms. Regina did a fantastic invitation and membership. So the chamber, we still need people. If you're not a member of the chamber, please consider being a member of the chamber. Even if you do not live or have a business in the high desert, we have about 18 chapters throughout Southern California. This is Mr. Rich Wallace. He is the president of the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce. And he has continually put chambers together from the desert to the sea. So we have in Barstow, Culver City, Hollywood City, the high desert, inner cities west, Inland Valley, Long Beach, Moreno Valley, Palm Springs, Pomona, Riverside cities, and San Gabriel Valley. And also we have an international worldwide chamber as well, though, too. And then you want to say something more?
Once again, I thank everybody for coming out. I appreciate it. I know I'm standing between y'all and food, so I won't be before you long. But as Karen said, my name is Rich Wallace, and I'm in Southern California. For $200 a year, you can be a member. You can sign up online. You can sign up today. We need you to be a member. We need your support to be able to bring out people and get the information that we need. As Ms. Regina said earlier, we negotiated with a bank here in the Bakersfield area, and they gave out $80,000 for us to find people to give the money to. There are other banks that are trying to get help for small businesses. What I'm tired of is us saying we don't have. We have because we have each other. And if we exercise each other, we don't need to look outside. So it's I was at a meeting with the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce in D.C., where we were on the phone with Matt Forte, talking about small businesses and programs for Black businesses across America. We belong to the mainstream chambers out of the state of California. We belong to all of those. We belong to most of the Hispanic chambers, most of the Asian chambers. So we're looking to connect. We want to remove the excuse that Black people have. Ain't nobody helping. Somebody's helping you. So, but you gotta help yourself. So we are here, and we will do anything that we can within reason to make sure that every Black business gets a leg up. So I'm gonna give this back to your local president, and he will tell you what to do next. Thank you very much.
We're gonna go into now, we have networking, we're gonna be getting food ready, but also we have some live entertainment from Mr. Bruce McGee. So he's gonna play some music for us, so this is time you can network, shake some of the hands of the people. And first of all, that's all, thank you to my staff, they did a great job in putting this all together. I appreciate it, because I did nothing but hold a couple of cheers. So my staff did a great job, so thank you, Mr. McGee. We get some music, network, and get some food. And we're here, we're going into a resource fair, so we have this room till 4:30. So we have paper groups and things like that. That's what we do. Thank you. All right. Peter Harrison.